Imagine being told that giving $1,000 is the key to unlocking blessings, breakthroughs, and favor from God. Sounds inspiring, right? But what if that same message is leaving thousands outraged, questioning whether it's faith or manipulation? Bishop Clarence McClendon's latest sermon has ignited a firestorm, dividing congregants, social media, and the gospel community itself. What really happens when a promise of divine favor is tied to your wallet? And why are critics calling this one of the most controversial sermons of the year? Stay with me, because what comes next will shock you and challenge everything you thought you knew about faith, money, and ministry. What if I told you that a single sermon could spark outrage across the gospel community and even leave devoted followers questioning their faith? Bishop Clarence McClendon, a well-known figure in the world of ministry, recently preached a message urging his followers to sow a $1,000 seed in order to receive blessings, breakthroughs, and favor from God. At first glance, it might sound like a call to faith and generosity, but the reaction has been anything but simple. In this video, we're going behind the scenes to uncover what's really happening with this controversial teaching. You'll hear reactions from congregants, insider perspectives from ministry staff, and expert opinions that haven't been widely discussed. We'll break down why so many are calling it manipulative, unethical, and even dangerous, and why this isn't just about money. You won't believe what happened when clips of the sermon went viral, sparking heated debates across social media and gospel forums. This is where it gets unbelievable, because the implications of this message go far beyond a single church service. They raise questions about faith, integrity, and the ethics of linking spiritual blessings with financial contributions. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this $1,000 offering isn't just controversial, it's a story that challenges the very foundation of prosperity preaching and forces believers to ask, is this really of God? It all began with a Sunday service that would soon ignite debates far beyond the church walls. Bishop Clarence McClendon, a prominent figure known for blending motivational preaching with practical spiritual guidance, stepped to the pulpit with a message that immediately grabbed attention. The sermon wasn't just a call to faith, it was a direct appeal to give, and not just a little, but a $1,000 seed. McClendon framed this offering as a spiritual investment. So $1,000 and you would unlock blessings, breakthroughs, and favor from God. For many congregants, it sounded empowering, even life-changing. The promise of divine favor tied to a tangible act of giving created a surge of excitement, with some attendees believing that this seed could literally transform their lives. People nodded, scribbled notes, and even began planning how they could meet the suggested amount. But controversy was brewing. To critics, the message felt manipulative. Turning faith into a financial transaction, they argued, blurred the line between genuine spiritual guidance and coercive prosperity preaching. What made this particularly explosive was the specificity of the $1,000 figure. It wasn't a suggestion or a symbolic gesture. It was a precise, tangible demand, which many saw as pressuring congregants to equate spiritual blessings with financial contribution. Social media users quickly jumped in, dissecting clips of the sermon. The reactions were polarizing. Supporters called it a bold, faith-driven strategy, saying it encouraged people to act with both belief and financial commitment. Detractors, however, saw something far more sinister, a tactic that subtly links personal worth, obedience, and favor to the size of one's wallet. Even within the church, murmurs began. Some congregants felt inspired and hopeful, while others left feeling uneasy, questioning whether the call to give was spiritually genuine or ethically questionable. Experts in theology warn that this kind of message can create long-term consequences, particularly when believers are encouraged to tie their financial means directly to divine favor. But what happens next escalated the controversy to a whole new level. When video clips of the sermon were shared online, reactions exploded beyond the congregation. Comments, debates, and critiques flooded YouTube, Twitter, and gospel forums. This wasn't just a church discussion anymore. It became a national debate about faith, money, and morality in modern ministry. And as the story continues, insiders reveal details about the planning and intent behind the sermon that many viewers could never have imagined. What seems like a simple message about giving had layers of strategy, motivation, and, according to some, manipulation. The question now loomed larger than ever. Was this a genuine spiritual teaching or a carefully orchestrated appeal that blurred the line between faith and finance? Once the $1,000 seed sermon concluded, the reactions were immediate and intense. Inside the church, the response was divided. Some congregants were inspired, feeling that Bishop Clarence McClendon was offering a tangible way to demonstrate faith and trust in God. These individuals viewed the $1,000 offering as an opportunity to take decisive action, believing that such a financial commitment could unlock unprecedented blessings in their lives. Conversations buzzed in pews, coffee tables, and small group meetings. How could they find the money? Was this truly God's instruction? Could this really transform their lives? But there was another side. Many attendees left the service with unease. To them, the specificity of the $1,000 figure felt less like inspiration and more like pressure. Questions swirled in their minds. Is God's favor really tied to the size of my wallet? Am I being coerced into giving? These doubts were shared quietly among friends and family, but they didn't stay quiet long. Once video clips of the sermon hit social media, the reactions intensified exponentially. On platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, the conversation exploded. Hashtags began trending, debates ignited, and online comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Supporters of McClendon praised McClendon, claiming the message was bold and faith-driven. Posts read, "Finally, someone is teaching that giving is not just spiritual, it's action, and this $1,000 seed is exactly what God wants us to do to activate blessings." Meanwhile, critics were equally vocal. Some called the sermon manipulative, even unethical. They argued that linking spiritual favor to a precise monetary amount risked creating a sense of spiritual inadequacy in those unable to contribute. Others described it as coercive, noting that vulnerable believers could feel pressured to give beyond their means, believing their faith and blessings depended on it. Posts labeled the message as controversial, diabolical, and a dangerous form of prosperity preaching. The uproar didn't stop with comments. Influential gospel leaders, ministry bloggers, and theologians began weighing in publicly. Some questioned the biblical basis for such a precise financial instruction, while others emphasized the ethical responsibility of pastors when discussing giving. One theologian wrote, "Faith is not a financial transaction. Linking obedience with a monetary figure risks turning spiritual devotion into commerce." The split was stark. On one side, believers saw the sermon as motivational, a practical application of faith. On the other, critics viewed it as a troubling reflection of modern prosperity preaching, where spiritual guidance can sometimes intertwine uncomfortably with financial incentive. Meanwhile, inside the church, tensions began to mount. Staff members and ministry leaders reportedly debated whether the message might alienate some congregants or be misunderstood by the broader audience. Emails and messages from concerned church members poured in, with many asking for clarification or expressing discomfort with the framing of the $1,000 seed. And then came the viral moment. A short clip of Bishop Clarence McClendon passionately urging his followers to sow the $1,000 seed reached hundreds of thousands of viewers. The video's comment section became a battleground for supporters and critics alike. Some shared testimonies claiming financial breakthroughs, while others warned viewers to be cautious of sermons that link faith to money. But what makes this story even more compelling and controversial is what insiders later revealed. According to sources familiar with the ministry, the $1,000 seed sermon wasn't a casual call to giving. It may have been part of a larger strategy aimed at motivating generosity through targeted, high-impact messaging, blending faith, psychology, and influence. The question now loomed even larger. If faith and finance are being intertwined so deliberately, how can believers discern between genuine spiritual guidance and subtle manipulation? But the story doesn't end with internal debates and ethical questions. The public response, now amplified by social media, is just the beginning. What happens when ordinary viewers, theologians, and critics collide online, dissecting the motives, the methods, and the impact of this controversial sermon? Once clips of Bishop Clarence McClendon's $1,000 seed sermon hit the internet, the controversy escalated at a pace few could have anticipated. Social media became a battleground where supporters, critics, and neutral observers all weighed in, sometimes passionately, sometimes angrily. Hashtags number 1000 seed